Welcome. First off, happy Thursday. My name is Jason Wells. The name of my business is it's Athletes on Purpose, and that'll make sense as we go through this. So I'll let you know a little bit as I explain and introduce myself on how we got here. So I like to start with the what's of how I got here to start with, and so some of the things of what I've done. I'm born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. So yes, I'm a Browns fan. I am a Cavs fan. I am a now Guardians fan. And I'm a Buckeyes fan, although I went to university one state west over in Indiana State. I went to Indiana State, played there for 4 years, and then I was blessed to play overseas for 13 years after that. And I use that word really specifically, blessed to be able to play overseas. And a lot of that experience is what's cultivated me into who I am right now. I consider myself to be a mindset enhancement coach, which is a fancy word for saying I believe that it all starts in our mind. I am a firm believer that you will not outbehave your thoughts, outbehave your beliefs and the things that you believe. And so, again, that's a little bit of how we got here. After playing overseas for the last 12 years now, I've kind of figured out exactly what I was going to do in life. I was on the court doing skill development for a while. And then after about 5 or 6 years of that, I really found my lane in this. Like I still call it skill development, but I call it skill development off the court. I'm more concerned, and I don't care what what sports you coach or play. It's all about, for me, I don't care how high you go, you will spend more time off the court, off the field, off the diamond than you will on. And so I got really concerned about the direction that we were going as coaches, as parents, as teachers, as far as where we were leading our students to. And so I kind of got into this lane of mindset development, and all of those things of what I've done pointed me back into who I am. And at my core, I'm a person that likes to refer to myself as my 3 Ps: people, purpose, and performance. People is, I'm a relationship guy. I love absolutely connecting with people, talking to people, learning their stories. If I'll say it now, I'll probably say it at the end again. If I were to sum up my career in one statement, it would be I learned myself by learning other people. For 13 years of my life, I got to be in somebody else's country, somebody else's culture for 8, 9, 10 months out of the year. And that has formulated and allowed me to be able to be who I am today. The purpose part, as you look at the spelling of my name, it actually starts there. I asked my mom about 6 or 7 years ago, I was turning 40. And I just randomly asked, I was like, Mom, why you put the Y in my name? She's like, oh, son, I just wanted you to know that you were uncommon. And so before that, I was just a guy who hated to have his name misspelled. And now it is the tagline of my business, which is, I say, tell people to spell it correctly because it's all about the why. I believe that individually and collectively, we are all here for a purpose. We have our purpose for being here. Some of us may feel that our purpose is coaching. I'm going to quickly challenge you into that. I know I have some of my coaches that I work with on a consistent basis on here now, and they know that's one of the first things I challenge. Like, not saying that coaching isn't a part of your purpose, but I can pretty sure show you that your purpose, your actual purpose, isn't coaching. And then the last one for me is performance. Granted, we're probably all in the athletic space, so we kind of know what performance looks like. But I'm not talking wins and losses when I talk about performance. I'm talking about the people that I'm attracted to, the people that choose to work with me and I choose to work with them. They've got this uncanny ability to always want to grow, always want to get better, always want to enhance, evolve, develop, whatever words you want to use. That to me is the performance piece. And so again, as we're getting into these different things, that's a little bit about me. You'll hear more about my stories as we go through this. But I really want to get going because I'm excited with it. So I call this pregame. We won't do this for very long because I want to be respectful of time and I want to get through the things I want to get through and make sure that we have some opportunity for question and answer and some dialogue late afterwards. But I want you to think about what coach has influenced you most in your life. What coach has influenced you most in your life? And I have a picture of this gentleman. His name is Royce Waltman. I would hope that some of you at least know who he is. Coach Waltman was my coach in college, but only for 1 year. My coach that recruited me, Sherman Dillard, had the opportunity to go to his alma mater, James Madison, going into my senior year. And Coach Waltman came in going into my senior year, of which at Indiana State, I had a little bit of success. Nothing extravagant, but I was a decent player. And the reason that I have his picture up here is because in 1 year of basketball, this dude taught me how to play. And not just the X's and O's of the game, but he taught us, and he taught me how to be in simplicity. I remember this was 25, 26 years ago, and I remember vividly, we had 3 rules on our team: be on time, go to class, tell the truth. That was it. Everything else was going to fall back into that. And yes, he's a Bobby Knight disciple. He passed away a few years ago, but he's a Bobby Knight disciple. And so you can only imagine, even going into my senior year, that was back in the day where coaches were allowed to talk to athletes a little bit different, and we got every bit of that. But Coach Waltman is by far one of the guys that I would put on my list. So I want you to think about this as we go through today and speak about coaches. And I'll do some talking here early, but please, as Saxton mentioned earlier, throw into the chat. You can even pin some things. If I say some things and I go through them faster and you might want to dig into them a little bit when we're done, I'm all for it. So these are all tools for your toolbox. And this is important because as I speak to my athletes, I'm often sharing with them. People tell us all the time, whether it's coaches, whether it's parents, whether it's teachers, they share with us all the time how the things that we learn through sports and through athletics are transferable skills. Yet I found through my own experience, we don't necessarily tell them what those transferable skills are or how to actually transfer them. And so as we're going through this, even as coaches on here now, I want you to be thinking about how these are tools for your toolbox: discipline, time management, collaboration, goal setting, leadership, decision-making, adaptability, conflict resolution, how to focus, how to overcome adversity. Those are the tools that we're talking about that we can add to our toolbox. And so for some of you in the course of the next 30, 35 minutes, we'll be adding tools to your toolbox. And I can only imagine that for some of you, those tools are already in there. And so I like to sharpen those tools. There's nothing worse than having a tool that hasn't been used in a long time and now it doesn't even work to its proper function because I haven't used it. So we're adding or sharpening tools. And as I share with my athletes, there is nothing worse than to need a tool and not have it. I would rather have it and not need it. All right. So as we're going through, remembering that thing. So I call this winners win. And this is actually a shift even in content from dialogue back and forth with Saxton. It used to be called the winning mindset, which I've decided to move in a different direction with that. So you're actually privy to some behind the scenes. I'm letting you in the kitchen right now. So the content that I pulled together from this is actually from my next book that'll be coming out. And this is going to be the title of it. So I've broken it down. We're going to go at it from 50,000 square feet. When the book comes out, it's in editing now. So we're going through the publishing process. My goal is to have it out around the holiday season. That's my birthday. So it's kind of my birthday gift to myself. But it will be this. It will be Winners Win. And we're going to be talking about the game plan to becoming a great coach or a great leader. And as you can see, that is an acronym. I am a man of acronyms and alliterations. I feel like they're sticky. I feel like they're memorable. I feel like we can constantly be connecting to them. So as we go through this, I want to introduce you and invite you to what I call the journey. And the journey is really simple. The journey defined is when the trip is more important than the destination. That's a journey. When the trip is more important than the destination. And so as I go through these slides, you'll notice pretty quickly, my slides are not very word heavy. It'll typically be a bullet point or two on there, and it'll be a visual. And what I want to do with that visual is I also want to invite all types of learning into this. And for this, because of time, we won't have the actual video component. But as I'm going through, working with my teams, working with my coaches or my leaders, I'm all about inviting and being able to connect to all 3 types of learning styles, which are kinesthetic, I need to do something; auditory, I need to hear something; or visual, I need to see something. So all these slides will be that, mainly an invitation into our visual where you can let your imagination go and listen to the words. If I find myself on a journey, I am going to find myself wanting a map. And so MAP is another acronym. It'll be the first one that we'll introduce ourselves into today. For me, the MAP is this. It's our mindset, it's our approach, it's our process. mindset. What's most important to me? What do I believe? What am I thinking? Like there is this buzzword, especially within the athletic space, of understanding what's our mindset, what's our mindset. Again, I am a firm believer that you will not outbehave your thoughts. And so our mindset is going to be something that's going to aid us on this journey. Our approach now become the things that we do, our behaviors. So if our mindset is our beliefs, our approach are our behaviors. What are the things that I'm doing that actually point me back into the things that I believe? And then that process is going to be the alignment and the commitment to what I do and what I think. So I'm working backwards in that. So we say all the time, trust the process, trust the process. A lot of times it's easy to trust the process when things are going well or things are going the way we want it to go. But how do we trust the process? How do we instill in our athletes and our students how to, quote unquote, trust the process when things aren't going your way, when you're not playing the minutes you want to play, when you're not winning the games that you want to win? How do you trust the process then? That's going to be rooted into what I do, my approach, and ultimately what I believe, my mindset. All right, so as we go through this, I want you to think, these next few slides are simply visuals. People, if you want to throw into the chat some of the things, I'll ask you this as I show you these next pictures. I don't care about your opinions. And I say that with all due respect. Your opinion is your opinion. And what I mean by that is this. I don't care whether or not you personally like or dislike some of the people that I'll show on these pictures. I want you to think about why and how and what made them be recognized as quote unquote great coaches. We can have some dialogue about it at the end, but I want you to think about this as well. Think about some of the people that are recognized as great coaches. Intentional pauses here as we look at the pictures. Coach Wooden, Coach Summit, Coach Gino, Coach Thompson, Coach Jackson, Coach Saban. Like them, don't like them. Pretty tough to argue with whether you would recognize them as great coaches. And I want you, as you look at this first set of pictures, to start thinking about why. Why would you throw them into that great coach category? Is it because of championships? Is it because of something else? Is it because of longevity? Is it because of consistency? Start now thinking about the things as you see these pictures. I'll move to the second slide. Do you see these pictures of these coaches? What makes them great coaches? What makes Coach Staley a great coach? Or would you even refer to her as a great coach? Not based on your opinion of her. Coach Kerr, Coach Tomlin. I'm in a phase right now where I am obsessed with Coach Tomlin. And I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. There is nothing worse than black and gold to me. But when we're talking about being in this space, I'm in a space where you're talking about a guy that's been coaching for 17 years, and they just beat my Browns a couple weeks ago on Monday Night Football, who's been coaching for 17 seasons in one of the most dominant cultures in professional sports and hasn't had a losing season. 8-8 season, but not a losing season. That's big time for me. Coach Pop, Coach Belichick. Third set, I can only imagine what we're going to get right here. Great coaches. Maybe we don't even know all of the people on here. I think if you don't know top left, get from under the rock that you've been under. And again, not your opinions. What makes these gentlemen and this lady and these ladies that have been on here great coaches? Coach Spolster, what makes him a great coach? Monty Williams, would you categorize him as a great coach? Mark Few hasn't won a national championship. He's been at this mid-major that he's now turned into a high major year after year for 30-something years now. Hasn't necessarily gotten the ultimate. Becky Hammond, like every time a job opens, her name gets thrown out. And why I threw her name in here is because obviously she's had success at multiple levels, but the fact that maybe she quote unquote bounces around a little bit because again, her name is in everything. She's been with the Aces. We'll see what happens with the WNBA season. But as we go through these pictures, again, I want you to think about this. What makes a coach or a leader or a person for that extent, what makes them great? What makes them great? Again, you can throw those into the chat. We'll have some conversation about this as we go along. And now we're going to get into it. As I mentioned earlier, GREAT for me is an acronym. Again, the acronyms for me are sticky. The acronyms for me are things where people can hear them, not hear them a whole bunch of times, and be able to remind themselves of what that means. So let's start with the G for me. And again, this is all high level. And we'll be going into a deeper dive as the book comes out towards the holiday season. So these are the principles from my newest book that'll be coming out in the holidays, around the holidays. Great leaders, great coaches, great people. They're always growing. Look at Coach K right here. Coach K walking around with his notebook. I can only imagine what type of notes that he has in there, the things that he's reading, the things that he's listening to, the people that he's having conversations with that invite him into this space to always be growing, always be learning, always wanting to know more. If we're talking about this, and I'll give you 3 bullet points behind each of those. In my growth area, I'm talking about your values, I'm talking about your vision, I'm talking about your voice. Once again, those are the alliterations. If I'm talking about growing, I'm talking about your values, your vision, your voice, your values. What's most important to you? What do you constantly believe in? What do you value? Like those are your core beliefs and your core principles. And here's the thing, and I love using Coach K as an example. Coach K coached at Duke for over 40 years. There's no way that you're going to tell me that he coached Jay Billis and Tommy Amaker the same way as he did Jason Tatum and Zion Williamson. There's absolutely no way. And the quote that I'll throw out and the idea that I'll throw out behind that is, as coaches, especially if you've been coaching for a while, how do you, this is a big time question right here, how do you modify your procedures and stick to your principles? How do you modify your procedures and stick to your principles? And Coach K is a prime example of that. His procedures had to change over the course of his 40 years. I remember back in the day when he didn't take JUCO guys because that wasn't his deal. Then Rashawn McLeod became his first junior college guy that he took. And then you had, towards the end of his career, obviously before retiring last season or 2 seasons ago now you have NILs as a factor. Now you have these one and dones as a factor. And there's no way that you can tell me. I happen to be able to say that I've had some conversations with Coach K. Procedures changed, how he did things, principles didn't. It was still rooted in West Point. It was still rooted in discipline. It was still rooted in commitment. It was still rooted in the brotherhood. It was just the difference of now, instead of having 4 years to do this, I've got maybe 7 or 8 months to do this with this group of guys. This group in this moment. Those go back to your values. Your values are going to now lead to your vision. Where am I going? Where do you want to go? And here's the thing about vision. And even with values, typically when I do this, I'll start with the vision, because asking someone what's most important to them, sometimes that's a challenging question. And so I get to this point where let's start with where you want to go or where you think you want to go. And then out of that, let's figure out what your values are. Because if I'm in a place with my vision where I think I know where I want to go, but I'm not really anchored to my values, that can cause catastrophic movement going forward. It's the world we live in. A lot of times we think we want to go places because we're rooted in somebody else's value. All right, so getting connected to our values allow us to now be in this place where our vision takes us where we want to go. And now our voice, yes, it's our verbal voice, but it's also our voice becomes our habits and the things that we consistently do that point back again to where we want to go and ultimately what we believe. This is similar to our map. These are all you questions, coaches, parents, educators. These are all you questions. What are you valued in? What's most important to you? What are your principles? How do your principles guide where you want to go into your vision? And then how are you saying it? Not just with your voice, but with your habits every day. These are the consistent things. The consistency that we speak about, as I share with some of my teams and athletes, when we talk about confidence, confidence doesn't just come from reps. Confidence comes from successful reps. So actually, if I'm repping something out and I'm not doing a great job or I'm not having successful reps, that actually isn't going to make my confidence go up. It's going to make it go down. Successful reps are going to be what makes my confidence go up. So as we go through this point, what are the successful reps that point back to where you want to go and what you believe? All right, typically I would stop right there, but again, I'm going to go through this. The R in our acronym of GREAT. great coaches, great leaders, great people are rooted in relationship. I absolutely love this photo because you got Juwan Howard as the head coach of Michigan hugging a young man after Michigan just beat them in the tournament. March Madness is March Madness for a reason. You have these Cinderella stories. You have these expectant teams that are supposed to. This was an 11 seed beating a 6 seed. This young man was probably going to declare for the draft, and that's what you get. We're rooted in relationship, and not just the relationship of our own players, but the relationship of the community, the relationship of those guys and ladies that I may be coaching against. As we're talking about relationship, here's the acronym behind it: connect, commit, and care. Connect. I'll say this in a couple different ways. This is not 1980. Some of us on here came up through coaches and parents and teachers in the 80s and the 90s where the relationship was the last thing that they were focused about. You're going to do it because I said do it. Now, we can't consistently talk about this generation, and not understand that they are rooted in relationship. We can go cliche, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Or we can just say, what is the relationship that you have with yourself first that allows you to be able to now listen to your athletes, listen to your students, listen to your children in ways that our parents, our coaches, our teachers didn't necessarily do with us. They weren't listening to us. That listening is what creates the relationship. That relationship is what's going to create the connection to allow Coach Izzo to continue coaching like he coaches in this moment. To allow, if you want to be heaven bent on being the yeller, the screamer, the disciplinarian, cool. You better have a relationship that allows you to be able to do that, though. All right, so that's a major shift for us. What's most important to them allows me to be able to now be in that space where we're creating connection. Commitment. Commitment is now I'm anchored into the growth and enhancement of others. Not what I want for them, but what they want for them. Goes back to the relationship. I have to know that athlete well enough to know what it is they want. Why are you pressuring the athlete to do extracurricular things when the only reason she's playing is because her friends are playing and she just wants the camaraderie of being around her people? Do you know that about her? You're pressing her to get extra work in, and all she wants to do is be around her friends. Knowing your players well enough to be able to know, again, what it is that they want, not what it is you want for them. We use this phrase oftentimes about meeting people where they are. My challenge becomes, are you meeting people where they are, or are you meeting them where you want them to be? That's a different statement. The last one, and this one is care. I'll throw this one out just for the people that are open for it. If it fits, wear it. If it doesn't, put it back on the rack. But care is also a replacement word for love. I know we got some different definitions of how people navigate through the word love, but for me, love is really simply defined as a commitment to someone else's well-being. That's what care is, a commitment to someone else's well-being. And with that, the content goes out of the window if we're talking about empathy. Empathy now says, I don't have to be connected to the actual content. I'm connected to the emotions now. I'm connected to the relationship. I'm committed to what you want for you, again, not what I want for you. That's the care piece. All right, so that's how we're moving through our relationships. The E in GR.E.A.T is energy. I love this picture again of Coach Staley. We know how she coaches. And again, if I don't, and I haven't yet had the opportunity to have some personal conversation with Coach, but I can only imagine the relationships that she has with her young ladies that allows her to be able to do everything from discipline them without being demeaning, all the way around to doing a doggone TikTok with them and dancing. Like, that's all based on the energy. And here's the thing, as we go through this, your energy is consistent, contagious, and it's coming from a place of celebration. Consistent, contagious, and it's coming from a place of celebration. Consistent. You get to be what you want. As coaches, I hear coaches, I've said it as a coach. Where's the energy? There's no energy on this team. Okay, cool. Then you get to be the energy on this team. I've had the great opportunity to learn from some awesome, awesome people. And one of the things that I was taught, even in my coaching, was this introduction of thermometer or thermostat. Are you a thermometer or are you a thermostat? And some of us know exactly what that means because you've heard it or you know the analogy. And some of us are still like, man, what you talking about, Coach? I'm just I'm just in a place where I show up. No. Thermometer or thermostat. Are you going to consistently say that your team doesn't have great energy and that's just a thermostat? I get to go in and I get to tell you what the temperature is. I'm sorry, that's a thermometer. Or I can be a thermostat and go in and say the energy isn't what I want it to be, so doggone it, I'm going to change it. That's invitation to you, coach, and that's an invitation to leaders on your team, to people on your team, to the person on the team who may not be playing the minutes that they want to play. Now, all of a sudden, they can be that consistent source of energy. What's that drive? Contagious. Best believe it is contagious. And coach, yours is heavier than everybody else's. It just is what it is, especially if you are head coach, especially if you are athletic director, especially if you are in these situations where your title or your position on the org chart says something specific. You best believe that your energy is contagious. So when you walk into the room, understand that people are going to shift based on your energy. My quick little story, my rookie year pro, I was 21 years old, hadn't turned 22 yet. It was about this time of year because my birthday is in December, and I had this old national team coach. He's an older guy, disciplinarian, and this is my first time outside of a 4 to 5 year window. 4 years high school, freshman, senior, 4 years-ish college, freshman, senior. This is my first time. I'm 21 years old and I'm playing with 31-year-olds, 32-year-olds. These guys are 10 years older than me. And my coach came to me about 2 months into the season and said, Jason, you don't have the privilege of having a bad day. Those were the words that he used, the privilege. And I understand now that that is the ultimate compliment of, man, if you got a bad day, we have a bad day. So understanding that as a leader, your energy is contagious. And then the last one is to celebrate. I like to throw ratios to it, and I like to actually call it deposits, like a bank deposit. So it can be 4 to 1, 5 to 1, 6 to 1. You pick the number, but I got to have more deposits than I do withdrawals. They can look like high fives. They can look like one-on-one conversations. They can look like knowing something personal about what's going on in my athletes or my staffs in their lives. They can look like whatever deems necessary in your environment, but those deposits. So now when I take out a withdrawal, when I have to coach you a little bit harder, when I have to coach my staff and let them know that how we're showing up as a staff isn't in alignment with where we want to go. Now that I'm taking out that withdrawal, I've got deposits. So now that withdrawal doesn't make me bankrupt. Think about it literally just like you do your bank account. I can't take $20 out if $20 isn't in there. All right, so that's your energy piece. Last couple. Great coaches, great leaders, great people are aware. They're aware, and these are all invitations to yourself first. They're growing within their self. Their relationship is strong within their self. Their energy is strong within their self. Their awareness is strong within their self. So if we're talking about awareness, and this is one I know I'm losing it right here. Who am I? This one isn't an acronym. But in this one, as we're talking about awareness, I want to talk about reflection, respect, and accept. If I'm reflecting, I want you to think about your own experience. Go back, coach, to 12 years old, 13 years old. What did you like to do? How did you like to be coached? And that's why this visual up here is a reflection. This is an invitation to be in a place to where go back, like think about the things that were beneficial for you from different coaching styles and people who you coached or who coached you. And then think about those things that, yeah, I'm probably do that one a little bit differently when I have the opportunity to be a coach. So being in that position where I get to reflect, respect is now showing up in respect to their experience. Like each one of your different athletes, each one of their parents, they're coming in through their experience. And so the respect piece is understanding that how they got there may not be how you got there, and it may not seem to be in alignment, but the respect now shows up to where I can show that consistent respect for your experience. And then the last one is the accept piece. And I love this one because now this is giving me the opportunity to now work through judgment. And it gets back to being in this place, even with the respect piece, I don't have to agree to accept. And this is the same piece in this accept. I don't have to necessarily agree. Some of us are still rejecting NIL. You don't have to agree with it to accept it. Some of us may reject how now younger athletes are showing up. I have a 16-year-old son and a 13-year-old son. And I have a picture of my 16-year-old, and he's got film up on the TV, but he's got his video game in his hand on his phone as well. I could be old school and say, man, if you're going to do one thing, you got to do one thing. Or I can, hey, man, if that allows you to be able to focus and understand on what's going on, and I'm asking them questions about number 72 on the other side of the ball, perfect. Perfect. All right, so those all allow us. And then the other awareness piece that's not on here that I'll throw in, awareness is also knowing your team to a space of, hey, is this a day where I need to come in and I need to be on their backs a little bit? Or is this a day where I need to come in and I need to hold up? You know, maybe it's we've gone through a tough stretch, or maybe we got in late last night and I don't need to have a super tough practice the next day. Those are all awareness pieces. And I love this picture as I go back. I picked Steve Kerr right here because I think about the different ways that he shows up for his guys and opportunities to be able to rest their bodies, take care of their bodies, invite them into spaces. I think about a few years ago where Iggy had the clipboard. Like, those are all awareness pieces as coaches that now we continue to move into this. And then the last one is great people, great coaches, great leaders are anchored in trust. This picture right here may be one of my all-time favorites with Coach Thompson and a young Allen Iverson. And for those of us that know, obviously we know that Allen had some challenges in high school, and Coach Thompson, and even at his Hall of Fame speech, gave big time props to Coach Thompson as being a father figure. So as we talk about trust, we'll go honesty, accountability, and feedback. Honesty. Here's my invitation. When we're talking about the truth, I hear coaches say it all the time. I'm just telling the truth. I'm just telling the truth. Are you telling the truth, or are you telling your truth? Because best believe that student, that athlete, that child, that parent, they have their truth as well. So a lot of times, if I'm talking the truth, I want to make sure that I'm sticking to the facts and not the things that I think that I want to throw into it and just call it the truth. That's one. Accountability now goes back to the relationship. The accountability now, if I'm talking about being able to, cliche phrase, hold someone accountable. And if you're inside the J. Wells tribe and with coaches and teams that I work with, we have quickly changed that. We don't say we hold people accountable. We say we lead them to accountability. That intentionality of words. Because for me, if I'm holding someone accountable, I feel like I'm holding them accountable to what I want. If I'm leading them to accountability, I feel like I'm leading them to where they want to go, which means I have to know them well enough to know where it is they want to go, back to the relationship. So now that accountability piece allows us to be able to show up in a different way. And then the last one is feedback. And this one is a two-way street, coaches. Once again, this is not 1980. Our ability to be able to give and receive feedback. And maybe your feedback isn't necessarily coming from your students. Maybe it's coming from your staff. Maybe, hopefully, you better have some people in your life that are coaching you. One of the things that I share as I'm going through the process of figuring out whether a coach is able to make the commitment to work with me is asking them, hey, if your coach doesn't have a coach, then they don't deserve to be your coach. Going back to the growth piece, the learning piece, if your coach doesn't have a coach, then they don't deserve to be your coach. We're in a place right now where feedback is a two-way street. We can't, as coaches, constantly give the feedback and not be open to it. That's like the therapist that doesn't go to therapy. All right. Last thing with trust, and I absolutely love this. I got this from Kevin Eastman, who I've had the opportunity to have as a great teacher and coach of mine. But he told me when it came down to trust, you got to be able to tell it, you got to be able to take it, and you got to be able to live it. You got to be able to tell the truth, you got to be able to take the truth, and you got to be able to live the truth. And the last thing, as I wrap with this, my dad, who, for anyone who knows me on a personal level, my dad was my guy. He used to always tell me that the relationship had to be strong enough to bear the weight of the truth. The relationship had to be strong enough to bear the weight of the truth. And you can take this in any form of your life that you want to. It could be your romantic relationship. It could be your occupational relationship, your relationship with your athletes, your relationship with your friends, whoever. The relationship has to be strong enough to bear the weight of the truth. The truth is oftentimes heavy. What's the relationship that allows us to be able to be in this truthful, trusting place where we can speak from accountability, where we can talk to each other through constructive coaching? That's the relationship. All right, so question. I got a question for you as we open this up, and Saxon, I'm ready. At the end of your career, what do you want? What do you want? And I like to sharpen that by asking you, what's your win? What's your win? Because if your wins are attached to wins and losses on the scoreboard, those are infinite. Those are infinite. You're gonna always get another win. You can always have another loss. And if I'm attaching my results or my worth to my results, then that could put me in a really challenging place, because if those W's aren't coming in, I could think real low of myself. And if those W's constantly come in, I could think that I'm just perfect where I am and I don't need to be getting better. So identifying your win, what does success look like for you? I will open this up for questions before I have a couple things to say at the end. Saxon, I appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason. And awesome presentation. I really like the part about the thermostat versus the thermometer. Never heard it, and I really relates. One question I had is, if the coaches on here, athletic directors, if they're to take one piece, maybe it's a quote, maybe it's a slide, what would you want them to take from this and implement into their team or their practice or their coaching style?
Man, no question. And this is hands down for me. And as I was coming up with the acronym, I did my best to find a word that the R was first, but I just didn't. But it would for sure, hands down, be the relationship piece. And again, the relationship with yourself. There's all these cliche quotes. One of my hashtags is commit to the cliche. So we have all these cliches, especially in the athletic space. Trust the process. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Get out your comfort zone. It is what it is. Like all of these cliches. And one cliche is the most important relationship is the relationship that you have with yourself. Cool. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Because if I'm walking around in not a great place in a relationship with myself, it has no choice but to carry over into the people that are around me. And it doesn't matter whether it's my staff, whether it's my spouse, whether it's my athletes. Like if I'm not in a great place, and I'm huge again on coaches about having outlets to be able to share things that are bothering them outside of the wins and losses, because those are now going to be able to allow me to step into the areas of my coaching and now have and forge. And I use the word grow relationships, not build relationships. I think of it like a garden where I want to constantly be watering. I want to constantly be nurturing. I want to constantly be pruning or cultivating these things. So I'm blossoming and blooming into a space where I'm growing a relationship. So if I had one thing, it would definitely be that.
Awesome. And going off relationships, we know we have coaches who are starting at new programs or taking over for a coach that had 40 years, or maybe they're not a brand new coach and they're, just started at a new school or with a new team. What do you say is the best way to get their buy-in?
You touched on a word and you don't even know it. Another commit to the cliche. So I actually call them word challenges. So another word challenge that I throw at my leaders and my coaches and my teams is belief over buy-in. Belief over buy-in. And coaches, I understand, especially if you're new and you're now bringing in your culture. I would even be really intentional about the language and not say I'm bringing in something better, because I want to value and I want to show value of the coach that was there before me. So I just always talk about doing something different. We're about to bring in a different culture. And if I'm in that place, speaking about belief over buy-in. So now our phrase is, if you buy in, then you can sell out at any given point. If I buy in, then I'm here because I'm here, but I don't necessarily want to be here. If I believe, then it's in those moments of challenge that I stick through. It's in those moments of adversity that we come together. It's in those moments where things aren't necessarily going our way that we can now fall back on our belief in our coach, our belief in his or her vision, our belief in our own vision, our belief in these things. That allows me to be able to show up and be in a different way. So if I'm talking to a coach, especially in a new situation with a new team, I would say that the quicker you can get and grow those relationships, that allows you to be able to now implement the things that you want to have in your garden, in your program, then so be it. And I use that term garden again, understanding if I as the coach am the gardener, then in my garden, I'm going to have the things that I like. Personal garden. I'm not like an agriculture produce person where I'm selling to grocery stores. This is my own personal garden. So in my own personal garden, I like tomatoes, I like green peppers, I like cucumbers. I don't necessarily like eggplant. So I'm not going to plant eggplant in my garden. That's not saying eggplant is some terrible thing. That's just saying that's not what I want in my garden. A lot of times we show up in these new situations, and in our garden, we might want tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, but we may have some eggplant. Cool. That's why we turn we turn the soil. We start to get the things out that we don't want, and we start to implement the things that we do.
I love that. I really do. And going off of you being an athlete yourself and being on the other side of it, there's obviously times where you've probably had really strong belief in your coaches, and there might have been times where you didn't. Could you kind of talk a little bit about when the belief wasn't there and how it compares to when you do have that strong belief in your coach?
Sure. I think it actually even goes back. I've been speaking about generations a little bit. So I'll be 47 in a couple months. I am a Gen, no, what am I? Gen X? Yes, Gen X. I was coached and taught and parented by baby boomers. And I'm really not into the generational thing outside of the point of acknowledging that, they exist. But here's the thing. As I think back to my athletic career, it really wasn't a whole lot of lack of belief because of how it was coached to us. Like it was coached, it was fear-based. And so it was, you're going to do it because I say so. You're going to do it because I know and you don't. And so my biggest invitation to now, as far as getting into that belief space and getting my athletes into that belief space, is giving them some opportunity to be able to contribute to the culture that you want to develop, especially if you're new. And that's not saying like the players have full reign to do whatever, but hey, at the end of the day, people are going to follow what they feel like they're a part of. People are going to move in a way, and if we can use skin in the game or things like that. At the end of the day, if I've got some input into what we're doing, then I'm going to take care of it a little bit differently than if I was just told to do it. My 16-year-old came to me about 3 or 4 months ago, earlier in the summer, and for the first time ever, he told me, Dad, I want to play basketball as a professional. I want to get paid to play basketball. Well, everything in my dad, coach, been there, done that, like everything in that showed up as, oh yeah, perfect. He lives in Indiana. I live in Atlanta. So there's a physical distance between us, but it's like, man, I need to get on the phone with your mom and you need to come live with me. And we need to be waking up at 5 a.m. so we can go work out and do this and do that. That's what everything in me said. And what came out was, how can I best show up for you to support you in that? Introduced me to a whole nother level of parenting. And what it was an invitation for him to now have some buy-in. Because what if I say, here's what we're going to do, here's what we're going to do, here's what we're going to do, and that's not what he wants to do. And what he said out of that, he's like, Dad, I would absolutely love it if you can make it to more games. Perfect. I'm going up there tomorrow to watch him play football for his homecoming game. So if I can invite a coach into a space of how do we get that belief in our buy-in from our athletes, it would be to invite them into the space. And even in those moments, if I'm answering your question directly, even in those moments where I felt like there may have been a disconnection with my belief in a coach, it quickly came back to, oh, okay, I know where we're going. I know where we're going. Here's the vision. So I know where we're going.
Great. Well, thank you. I think that's the last question, but want to give you a big shout out, Jason. I'll let you close it up here in a minute, but also want to thank all the coaches and athletic directors who took the time out of the day to hop on this call and better themselves, both for themselves and their players. So stick around for future webinar opportunities. We have these almost every week, but be on the lookout. And Jason, I'll pass it over to you for closing remarks.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. And so I'll finish here if my slides are still showing. I'll finish here. So I like to have everything be an anchor. And so even though we asked a couple questions about where are we going, if I could leave with one thing, with one anchor, if you could leave with one thing, I would want you to know that your values become your roadmap. Your values become your roadmap. And so constantly and consistently re-asking yourself those questions, because they can shift. What was important to you 15 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 months ago, it could be different now. And so constantly being in that place where I'm asking myself, what's most important to me? Those become now the vision, and the vision obviously again leads into our voice. And so being in that place of understanding what's most important to you, what are your principles, how do I now modify my principle or modify my procedures, but cling to my principles. Here's the book. This is actually the first book, which is crazy. We lost like 2 years for real, because for me to say that this was written in 2018, it's on Amazon. The posters behind me, and the anchor behind that one is that we always talk about it's bigger than the game, it's bigger than the game, it's bigger than the game. Well, if it's bigger than the game, why do we focus so much on the game? Why do we focus so much on wins and losses? Why do we focus so much on court development, on field development, and not off court mindset development, character development, personal development? So that was the first book. Again, second book is coming out. I had a QR code up here for anybody that might want to scan. And then as I wrap, I just want to say thank you again. Here's information. I can go back. And as I put that up there, and this is a different piece, as you see Shoes Have Souls, we can have different conversations about it. That's another place that I'm going. But pretty much anywhere, if you spell my name correctly, Jayson, you will find me. Shoes Have Souls is a passion that has quickly turned purpose. But as we live in this world of likes and follows, I would like to say that if you choose to connect with me, I don't want you to follow me. I want you to lead with me. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Saxon. Thank you, BSN. I look forward to staying connected for sure.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you again. Bye-bye.